Beating the heat, polar bear style. Have you ever imagined a polar bear living in the desert? Have you ever seen a polar bear living in the desert? If you have, then you've probably been to the Reed Park Zoo in Tucson and probably thought that there was no way those polar bears could really enjoy such heat. It is a thought shared by many patrons of the Reed Park Zoo, and it also is a question brought up numerous times. Polar bears naturally live in the Arctic Ocean, where the average temperature is about negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit to 30 degrees Fahrenheit. It is no wonder why many assume the bears could not be able to handle the dry heat of Tucson. The annual temperature in Tucson, Arizona is 70 degrees Fahrenheit to over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The polar bears at the Reed Park Zoo may not be thought of as great desert dwellers, but they are able to beat the heat with their natural adaptations that help them live in the Arctic, and the enclosure they live in also helps them live comfortably in the desert. Coming from the Arctic, polar bears must be able to handle the arid and freezing temperatures. In contrast, living in Tucson, the bears must be able to live in the dry heat of the desert. Luckily, polar bears have adaptations that help them live in these two fairly different climates easily. Polar bears each have 4 inches of blubber surrounding their whole body. This may seem to be a huge inconvenience in Tucson, but their blubber does not act as a heater at all. The blubber covering the bear is more of an insulator, since it simply maintains the temperature of the bear's body. The 4 inches of blubber is able to maintain the body temperature of the bear even during the freezing temperatures of the Arctic. In Tucson, the bears are able to do the same thing by maintaining the body temperature that they would have in the Arctic. The 4 inches of blubber covering the bears is the same as covering a hand or plastic glove with Crisco and dipping the hand into hot water and then into cold water. The hand would not be able to tell which water was cold and which was hot, since the Crisco acts as 4 inches of polar bear blubber and it maintains the temperature of the hand. Polar bears also have the adaptation of hollow hair. This is an adaptation that helps them in the Arctic by soaking in the sun's rays through their black skin. The hair also helps them survive in the desert's heat by being lighter than a normal coat of hair. All the adaptations the polar bears have in order to survive in the climate of the Arctic also help them live in Tucson. Adaptations do help the polar bears live comfortably in Tucson, but the Reed Park Zoo also helps these animals feel comfortable at all times. They do this by adjusting the bear's enclosure with many extras in case they feel too hot. The polar bears are able to handle almost all days in Tucson, but they are also given an enclosure in case they feel the need to just be cool. The bears not only receive 2 enclosures viewed by the public, but also 2 behind the scenes. The polar bears have 4 enclosures total. 2 of these enclosures include pools that they can swim in. The other 2 enclosures are shaded and are equipped with a fan and a swamp cooler. The polar bears are always given the option to be in either out on exhibit or behind the scenes, where their fan and swamp cooler are located. Oftentimes, the bears choose to be out on exhibit since they are able to handle the climate easily. The outside exhibit is also equipped with the largest pool to swim in and is often loaded with many enrichment toys for the bears. The polar bears are quite capable of living in the dry heat of Tucson, but in case they ever feel the need to cool down, the zoo has made it possible for them to do so. There are about 20,000 polar bears on this planet. Their locations vary between reservations, zoos, and the wilderness. 2 of these 20,000 polar bears are located down in the desert. Although it may be hard to imagine a polar bear in the desert, they are quite capable of beating the heat. Polar bears are remarkable animals that are able to use their unique adaptations to thrive in the cold Arctic and the hot desert. Polar bears are quite amazing animals, but when they cannot take the dry heat of Tucson, the Reed Park Zoo provides them with many options and ways to escape the heat. Tucson, Arizona is very different from the natural climate the polar bears are used to and built for, but they are also able to use their natural adaptations and beat the heat of the desert.